the biggest thing, and I still sometimes struggle with this, trying to do favors, for clients and helping them out in certain situations. And that always comes back to bite me.
All of your efforts focusing on which tool should I pick, focus your efforts on how do we properly implement the tools.
The only other thing that I would say that was really an invaluable lesson that I learned the hard way is hire where you're weak. Don't hire to replace yourself.
Welcome to this episode of Sunny Silver Linings. Our guests today are all highly experienced MSP founders and leaders with the knowledge and skills to help you grow your practice. Joining Sunny today, we have Michael Hornby, CEO, Techmentum; Sean Francis, CEO, Technology Assurance Group, Inc., and Al Alper, CEO, Absolute Logic. And now, here's your host, the visionary founder and CEO of IT by Design and MSP Talent Authority, Mr. Sunny Kayla. Over to you, Sunny. Welcome to Sunny Silver Linings. My name is Todd Billier, and no, my name is not Sunny. Sunny, unfortunately, is a little under the weather, so I'm filling in for him this week. But we've got a really exciting episode here. We got 3 highly experienced MSP owners, and we're going to have a lot of fun sharing best practices and some tips, and we're going to mainly focus on state of the channel today. So why don't we get started with some introductions? Sean, you're not out flying your plane anywhere. Why don't you, we got you grounded here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Well, again, my name is Sean Francis. My company is Technology Assurance Group. We've been around for a little over 20 years. It's, when I'm not working on IT, I'm trying to spend time with my family, go flying, or just love being outdoors.
Excellent. All right, over to you, Michael. We know you're up in Jersey. We know things are cold, but we're going to keep things hot here on this podcast. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Things are cold, but we're hanging in here. My name's Michael. Thanks so much for having me on the podcast. My company is Techmentum. Founded it's just coming up on 17 years ago. It's been an interesting and fun ride, and I'm excited to talk about what I've learned.
Excellent. And we got Big Al. Al, you're not out there on the racetrack driving that car around at like 380 miles an hour or anything. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Actually, I'm in Charleston, South Carolina this week and driving a rental car at 300 miles an hour. As long as they don't have a GPS chip in it, I'm okay. Al Alper, my MSP is Absolute Logic. I've been around longer than I've been gray. So if that's an indicator, I've been working with IT by Design for some time as well. So happy to share my experiences, what got us here, why we've been successful. If some would argue we're successful. So looking forward to it. Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you all 3 for your time today. So let's start out with the first question around lessons you would share with others. So, they say the best lesson to learn is the mistake somebody else made. So if you had one lesson or tip to give to somebody starting an MSP today, what would that be? So Michael, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, sure. Great question, Todd. I mean, I've found from my experience, if you read a lot and talk to a lot of people, you're going to learn a lot of things, but you shouldn't take it as gospel. You need to draw your own conclusions. Just go out there and do your own thing. If you're going to go and do someone else's thing, you might as well buy a franchise. That's what the franchise is for, to have someone else figure out the formula for how to run a business, and you just follow the playbook. That's an investment. That's not an entrepreneurial journey. So you need to learn from the mistakes of others, but don't necessarily try and mirror what you perceive to be their successes. You got to go out and do what works for you and your business. You always have to remember why you started the business in the first place, what your ultimate motivation was. And everyone's answer to that's going to be different. If you started the business because you perceive that there is a gap in services or solutions offered, you need to pursue that objective with relentless drive.
Excellent. Great answer. And I like that. Coming back to the why. So, Sean, how about you? What tip would you share?
Well, so, kind of continue on with what Michael said, you definitely need to, kind of do your own thing, but do know that you're not alone. And that's something that, when I first started this, I felt like I didn't have anybody I could talk to, any other resources to go to, just to even ask questions or bounce ideas off of. There are a lot of resources. There's a lot of people and communities available to be able to kind of have those conversations. But don't take them, as Michael said, don't take them as gospel. Use them as, tools to try and find out what worked for you, what didn't work for you. And what works for one doesn't mean it's going to work for you, but at least use some of those, case studies that other people have done and try and take that into your own environment and say, how would this work for me? Take the parts that you think will work and that you can use, and then adjust, to be able to make the other things that, leave out the stuff that's not going to affect you. But the biggest thing is know you're not alone. Because that was one of the big challenges. I felt like there was nobody else that knows what I'm going through, and I don't have a resource to go to help me out with things.
Great. Power community. I totally agree with that. And how about you, Big Al?
Well, that's some really good advice, hard to follow. Probably the two biggest things, and feeding on that, find a peer group. I can't express strongly enough how powerful that is. I mean, it gives you an opportunity to learn from other people's mistakes. I mean, one of the things that's really interesting about this community and why I love it as much as I do, is that we willingly, wantingly share what we do with our peers, even if you're in a peer group with somebody who's quite literally right next door to you. I was in a peer group, so our MSP is located in Wilton, Connecticut. One floor above us is another MSP. And we were in a peer group together, and we used to talk about the trials and tribulations and all the BS that you go through running an MSP, and neither of us held back. And there's so much business. We're in the shadow of New York City, Michael. I don't think you're that far from there either, are you? And so there's so much business out there. We never really looked at ourselves as competitors, because you might win one from me, but I'll win one from you down the road, and it's not a big deal. And you give yourself to the community, and you give yourself to your peer group, and that sharing is incredibly invaluable. In fact, I'm a member to this day of a peer group that was a part of a paid organization that I was a member of, that I'm no longer a member of, but as a group, we stay together. So we're still meeting on a weekly basis just to share our trials and tribulations. So join a peer group, find one that fits. Don't be afraid of competition. I mean, if you're good, you'll win business, and we all fall down. And that's when their customer, if they've fallen down, is looking for somebody, it should be you. Why not you? And you'll fall down, and why shouldn't it be them? So there's plenty of business out there. Don't be afraid of that. And then the only other thing that I would say that was really an invaluable lesson that I learned the hard way is hire where you're weak. Don't hire to replace yourself. Most MSPs, they're accidental business owners, I call them. You got where you are because you're very good at what you do. Stick with what you're good at as you're growing, and hire where you're weak. Hire where you're weak. Fill in the blanks. I made the mistake of hiring to free myself up, and I just got it. It was a mistake. I'll put it there that way.
Excellent. One of the neat things is all three of you, you kind of mentioned, learning from others' mistakes, be it from the community or a peer group or whatever. So it's a great segue to our next question about common mistakes you see other MSPs, make early on. So Sean, why don't we go over to you? What do you see as common mistakes you see other MSPs make as they're starting up?
I'll tell you all the things that I did wrong. I mean, it was like everything, but it was, trying to do anything to earn a dollar, taking on, the wrong type of clients, doing the wrong type of jobs, taking on unsupported solutions, or the biggest thing, and I still sometimes struggle with this, trying to do favors, for clients and helping them out in certain situations. And that always comes back to bite me. But realize that, what are you good at? Know what you need to do to be able to grow your business appropriately, and stick with that. That was, and not every dollar is a good dollar. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Still have to remind myself that today.
Excellent. How about you, Al? What do you see as, you're kind of in a unique spot because you're both an MSP and you're a vendor selling to other MSPs. So, you probably see quite a bit, along your journey there. What do you see common mistakes that the early startup type MSPs are making?
I'm going to answer that question from an MSP's perspective as well as a vendor's perspective, because I think they have those two perspectives really give it a unique opportunity to see a larger landscape, if you would. So from an MSP's perspective, I think the Sean had a great answer, frankly. the shotgun approach to finding every dollar, right? And everybody does that when you start up because you literally eat what you kill. And so you take in every dollar to get to a place, but then you find yourself in this melee of technologies you've just never seen before and swore you could support, and you have sleepless nights dealing with it, or customers that are the absolute worst human beings on planet Earth. The other big mistake that MSPs make, and this is looking at it from the vendor and MSP perspective, frankly, is they're always looking for the next shiny penny in the way of tools, the next cool thing. To the extent that you can, find tools that do the job for you, and make sure they're tools that not only are they doing a job for you, but tools that you can invest in. As we've grown those clients, I haven't had to add engineers. Your single biggest cost center are people. That's just a fact of life for every business on planet Earth. And so if you're able to expand your business because you've invested in your tools, your margin goes way the hell up. So find tools that do the job, find tools that you can invest in vis-a-vis money and time and effort to streamline and automate, and then just exploit the hell out of that. And the benefits that you'll reap down the road are incalculable, frankly.
Excellent. And Michael, how about yourself? You've been around quite a while. You've grown your business successfully. What do you see as common mistakes other MSPs are making early on, or you'd advise them not to make?
I think Al really makes a great point there about the tools, and the tools are extremely important. I think that especially younger MSPs, they tend to focus too much of their energy on what is in their stack and not how to properly implement what's in their stack. Al alluded to spending hundreds of thousands of dollars actually implementing his tools. And that's the key there. Everyone likes to talk about, what's the best RMM? Is it ConnectWise? Is it Kaseya or whatever, whatever the flavor of the week is? They're all pretty much the same under the hood. If one was leagues better than another, that would be the only product on the market, right? They're all very, very similar. So don't spend all of your efforts focusing on which tool should I pick. Focus your efforts on how do we properly implement the tools. So I'd say between maybe 5 and 10% of our efforts should be spent picking the tool, and the rest should be focused on properly implementing it. The only way to really grow your business is you have to add value to your customers, and reselling them a software package or a product is not adding value whatsoever. Our value add is our knowledge. We're engineers. We're building something for our clients that they don't have the skills to build themselves. And that's not an off-the-shelf product that we can just give to them. We have to figure it out. We need to invest in coming up with the proper way to implement these tools.
You struck a good point there, Michael, I want to expand on. When you're buying a tool, price should be the second thought, not what you lead with. You are literally going to get what you pay for. And I all too often I see MSPs choosing a tool based on the price that they're going to pay for it to save a couple of pennies. You are going to spend thousands in man hours to make up for the gaps that the tool isn't fulfilling. So when I say invest in your tool, find something that's going to give you the ability to reduce your labor, not increase your labor. Price is a great indicator of whether or not you're going to spend more time because you're not spending enough money.
Right. And Al, it's a great segue about, and Michael, you mentioned it as well about the in-house knowledge. It's about people. That's what really sets one MSP apart from another. So I want to pivot over to the topic of people. So Al, I'm going to throw it over to you. What do you see as important? How do you build a good culture? What should an MSP do to have that culture that drives, both engagement, which obviously leads to retention, because our people are our most, an important resource in an MSP.
That's a great question. I don't know if I'm the right guy to answer that question, but
should we go to HR? Should we ask your
Didn't
HR
I mention
team?
I hate HR? So probably the two most important things I would say that help foster a culture, and we're very fortunate. Our team has been with us for quite some time, and I think that is indicative of our culture. As the owner, as the leader of that company, you have to do what you say you're going to do. And you have to not just do that by words. You have to do that by actions. You have to actually demonstrate that you mean what you say, that you're committed to your values. You should have your values plastered all over the company walls and what we stand for, what we believe in. But then you have to exemplify that as a leader. And the way you interact with them, and the way you interact with your clients, and the way you interact with your vendors. Your values have to carry throughout the entire company and all the interactions that you have. And the other thing is, you have to support your team. If you've got a customer that is abusive, get rid of them. I don't care how much money they're paying you, because if you're allowing a customer to walk all over your team will have no respect for you, because you're valuing the dollars you make from the customer over them, and they are your most valuable asset, because they're literally the front line of your company.
Excellent. Michael, how about yourself? As you've built that culture there at Techmentum, how do you do it? How do you build a strong culture?
I think the retention that you had originally asked about is probably the most important piece there. It's very hard to find good people, and when you find them, you better do what you need to keep them. I think for us, the single most important thing, it sounds a little bit weird, but we treat our employees like adults. And I say that because a lot of businesses really don't. Our focus is on results, and we use metrics to measure those results. For us, it's satisfied customers that are properly protected. As long as we can achieve that, we don't really focus on things like, was an employee coming in a couple minutes late, or did they have to take their car to the mechanic in the middle of the day? That's not what it's about. We want to make sure that as a company, we're all rowing the boat in the same direction. And we do our best to screen for that during the hiring process, and we try and ingrain it into our culture as best as we can. Our entire team knows what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If the company is successful and they're contributing to that success, they're going to be successful as well.
Great. Sean, you've got a good team up there. How about yourself? What are you doing to drive such a strong culture?
So one of the big things that we try and do is make them part of like all of our processes and things that goes on. And part of that also comes to knowing them. So we do one-to-ones with our team individually, making sure that, and it's not for me to kind of check in and see, it's not for me saying, how are you doing on your metrics? It's, hey, how are things with you? How are things with the family? What are your goals? What are your desires? And knowing that makes a difference to how you're going to, treat them, interact with them. I mean, some people, money is their goals and desires. Some of them, it's not. They don't care about money. It's about knowledge. It's about time. It's about growth and learning. So knowing, the team, knowing what motivates them is part of it. And then, making them part of the whole process. We're small. So when we redid our values a few years ago, it was a whole company process that we spent a couple months on. We had everybody part of it. It wasn't something I came in and said, here's our values, learn them, do them, follow them. I actually just would ask the questions, and then they would kind of spit it out. And we whiteboarded it and drew it out, and they came up with our company values. They came up with our goals. And it makes it so much easier for them to be a part of that and buy into that when it's something they're putting up on the board versus me coming in and dictating to them what's going to happen. And that made a big difference. And so we do that with a lot of things, even if it's a process. Hey, we want to see about hiring a new service manager. What does a service manager look like? What does a bad one look like? What are the things we want them to be able to do? Instead of me just telling them, here's your new service manager. It kind of helps, make them part of that whole process and brings on their engagement into it.
Great. Getting the team involved. Earlier on, Michael, Al mentioned you're just outside New York City. I don't know if there's a city on earth that has more MSPs, right in that Tri-City area. How does an MSP differentiate themselves from others when, a lot of it's the common tools that we talked about or the common services that MSPs offer? How do you differentiate your MSP from others?
Yeah, the whole industry, unfortunately, has commoditized itself a little bit, and that really shouldn't be the case. MSPs view their offering as just a collection of products that they're piecing together into a package. And guess what? Customers view it the same way. To them, it's like buying a car. They're trying to decide between a BMW and an Audi. They're so substantially similar that they generally end up buying from the better salesperson or the slicker salesperson. That's not what we as MSPs are or should be delivering. It's not the stack, as I alluded to before. It's the customer service, and it's how you implement that technology. So you have to go in and you have to show your value to companies that are out there. And so I think that that's the real differentiator between a good MSP and a bad one in a very crowded market.
Excellent. And Sean, as your team's out there selling Technology Assurance Group, how do they differentiate you from others there in the market there in Richmond?
That's interesting because again, it is tough. And what I find is that a lot of us MSPs, we all say the same thing. We're better at this, we're better at that. But then if you go talk to the other MSPs, they all say, no, that's not true. They think they are. And it's a struggle. What we found was helpful for us is we ask our clients what made them choose to come to us and what makes them stay. Because we can think what from my perspective, I think all these things, but really what is the client's perception? Why do they, stick around for, 10 plus years? Why do they, choose to go with us in the first place, even if we weren't the cheapest solution? What are those differentiators? Because they're going to let us know what those things are, and whether it's the customer service, whether it's we make them feel like a person, whether it's because we, you talk to a live person, whatever it is. That's what, ask your clients, because that's what you're going to focus on, and then present that to the new opportunities that come your way.
Perfect. Great answer. I like that, getting the feedback from your customers. And Al, how do you guys do it there? Again, you have the vendor side on the security, which obviously there's a lot of vendors out there. How do you differentiate yourself from the others?
So I love this topic. And I think that Shaw was alluding to this, but no one says they suck less, right? There's everybody is the best MSP on planet Earth, and so differentiation is difficult. In fact, one of on the vendor side of my life, one of the presentations I give is about that. And I start the event off. Part of my research is I know what my audience is going to look like, and so I look up the registered MSPs. And I actually grab taglines off their website. And there is almost no difference in that audience. Like you couldn't tell one from the other. And, frankly, that's predominantly born from two reasons. One is the vendors. Vendors teach you to sell products, their product specifically. And so there's nothing to really differentiate one person selling a Datto product from another person selling a Datto product. And unfortunately, MSPs sell products then. And as a result, how does a prospect decide which one to go with? If you're selling me a Datto and he's selling me a Datto and he says he's the best and you say you're the best, who do I choose, right? And so differentiation is extraordinarily difficult. Like one of the things I always say to the audience is, don't ever sell a product, sell a solution. So if you know your audience, and you should hyper verticalize. Selling a shotgun solution, so one size fits all, doesn't give you an opportunity to differentiate. And so you've got to know your market. And if you can hyper verticalize, you have a tremendous opportunity to differentiate from others in this crowded field, because I can guarantee you 90% of the MSPs in the area that are marketing to them are marketing to them with generic language. How do I know? I belong to a bunch of marketing organizations. They all have the same crap that they tell you to spit out. No disrespect to those organizations. Hyper verticalize is a great way to do that. And so we sell solutions, we hyper verticalize, and we speak to our audience on their level using their colloquialisms, their language, and they very much appreciate that.
Yep, I agree. You got to speak your prospect's language. Al, I'm going to come back to you to kick off this final question. Has automation and AI and, all these different tools and new solutions are coming into place to help MSPs. What do you see some of the biggest challenges that the MSP space will face over the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, that's a great question. Okay, so let me start with the technical challenges I think they're going to face. So AI is going to be probably the single biggest challenge they'll face from a technical perspective, both in terms of protecting their client, but also getting themselves replaced. So I truly believe that we are less than 5 years away from level one being completely AI based. As an MSP, we need to be embracing AI fully and should be at the forefront of it. It's because ultimately that level one support is gonna go away. The human part of it will go away because AI will take it over. People will be able to call in, ask a question. That voice, that IVR system is going to recognize what they've asked, and an IVR response is going to tell them what they need to do. That is what I consider level one. MSPs need to be thinking about as they're looking at what's in front of them and how they're. If you fight it, you're going to get lost. It's just you're going to get replaced. The other thing that's coming down the pike that I think is important that people should be aware of, compliance. So obviously, on the vendor side of my life, we're big into compliance, but we got into that space as a vendor because we truly believe that compliance is where ultimately all businesses are going to be. Insurance companies are now tethering payments to whether or not you complied with certain security policies that you had in place that you say you had. First of all, they won't give you coverage if you don't have them in place, like MFA and training and BCDR. But more importantly, if you say you had them in place and then you've been breached or your customer's been breached and there's no evidence that you had it in place, they'll deny the claim. And so the private sector is pushing compliance down, and MSPs, if they get their arms around it, we're at the beginning of this. So if you get your arms around it, you will be tomorrow's leader. And if you don't get your arms around it, you're going to be replaced because everybody's going to have compliance.
Excellent. Great. Good points. Michael, what do you think some of the big challenges coming down the pipe 5-10 years out for the MSP space are?
I look at it more from the client's perspective and what services we need to figure out how to deliver to our clients. And obviously, cybersecurity is a big piece of that. It's a constant game of cat and mouse. But nowadays, like Al mentioned, the cat has tools like artificial intelligence and automation. And if you look at the statistics, the mouse is not doing so well. And so how can we prepare? I mean, look, there's no silver bullet here. It's about staying on top of the changes that are happening in the industry. It's about being ahead of it, not behind. Businesses really need to invest, not just in the tools to protect themselves, but in the R&D piece of things as well. We at our company have internal resources that are dedicated to following security experts and news, just to understand what are the latest threats, where are things headed, what are the various products and solutions that are out there, testing those products and solutions, figuring out the best practices behind them and rolling it out to our clients. 5 years ago, that was a part-time job at best. Now it's the fastest growing part of our company. So we really need to make sure that we stay ahead of all of the changes, not just cybersecurity, but that's a huge part of it, and make sure that we're implementing the solutions before it's too late.
Excellent. All right, Sean, why don't you bring us home? What do you see the challenges in the next 5 to 10 years?
You know, both Alan and Michael kind of hit on it. You know, it is compliance and it is security, and trying to stay on top of that, which is difficult. The challenge that I see with it is, you know, as Michael, you know, had said a few years ago, you know, it was just something like kind of a part-time job. Now you've got to have a bunch of guys who are higher level people continually staying on top of this stuff. That's a cost. That's a cost to us, which we have to pass off to our end users. And, you know, trying, I think, sometimes to get the end users to understand that they need to invest in security and all this stuff when it's difficult because they don't see it. It's not like, hey, we're going to charge you more, but it's going to be faster. You're going to get better equipment. You know, you can do more work. It's all behind the scenes that we're doing to protect them, to keep them compliant, to keep them safe, to keep them secure. And sometimes it can be a little bit more cumbersome to them. We're going to roll out MFA. You know, clients just love it when we force them to do two-factor authentication to everything that they do. You know, we're putting more tools behind the scenes that are going to pop up and say, oh, this has been blocked from installing, you know, because, you know, we're trying to protect you from, you know, clicking and downloading something. Trying to show that value to the client and getting them to understand how important it is to invest in the security, invest in the compliance to keep them safe. That's where I feel a lot of the struggle is, and that's going to continue. And getting them to know that value is going to be the successful MSPs are going to know how to present that value properly, and the ones that don't, they're going to drop that out. They're going to offer these lower price solutions and end up with security issues down the road. Excellent. Well, gentlemen, thank you. Sean, Michael, Al, thank you for your time today. Appreciate you being a guest here on Sunny Silver Linings with this guy hosting. For those watching, we appreciate you taking the time to
to join in here. Make sure you like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below if you have any questions you'd like us to ask in future episodes. And we will see everyone next week.
Thanks, Todd. Thanks, Michael and
Thanks
Al.
for having us.
Thank you for watching Sunny's Silver Linings. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.